Hello and welcome back to a new video. In this presentation, we will explore the differences between conversational analysis, or CA, and discourse analysis, often abbreviated as DA. Although both methods study language in use, they differ in their theoretical roots, methodological approaches, and the types of questions they ask. So by the end of this presentation, you will be able to identify which approach best suits your own research aims. Both conversation analysis and discourse analysis share the goal of studying language in its real-world context, but they operate at different levels of analysis. Conversation analysis focuses on the micro details of spoken interaction, while discourse analysis often considers broader sociocultural, institutional, and power-related dimensions of language use. These differences stem from distinct intellectual origins and research traditions. Conversation analysis emerged in the 1960s from ethnomethodology, pioneered by Sachs, Shegloves, and Jefferson. It treats conversation as a self-organizing system discoverable through close empirical observation. Discourse analysis developed later on, drawing from linguistics, semiotics, sociology, and critical theory. It often adopts a more interpretative stance, situating language within power structures, ideologies, and a broader communicative practices. With regards to data sources and scope, conversation analysis relies on naturally occurring conversations captured in audio or in video recording, emphasizing fine-grained turn-by-turn analysis. On the contrary, discourse analysis is broader in its scope, working both with spoken and written text, including media articles, policy documents, and institutional communication. While conversation analysis asks how is this interaction organized, discourse analysis often asks what does this discourse reveal about social structures and meanings. With regards to the methods of analysis, in conversation analysis, the transcription is highly detailed. It follows conventions such as the Jefferson transcription convention system, and the analysis is sequential. So we're closely looking at the turn takings, the repairs, pauses, and prosody within an interaction. In contrast, discourse analysis often uses thematic coding, rhetorical analysis, and critical discourse approaches to examine how texts construct meaning and reproduce power relations. Conversation analysis tends to be descriptive and inductive, whereas discourse analysis often incorporates interpretative or even normative evaluation of the text. There are also differences if we look at the research questions we ask when using these two different frameworks. So CA is concerned with how the interaction is accomplished, how turns are taken, how misunderstandings are repaired, how sequences are structured within an interaction. On the contrary, in discourse analysis, we tend to focus on what the discourse means in a social, in a political, or in a cultural context. So, for example, how identity are constructed, how ideologies are reproduced, and how texts influence social realities. With regard to these two different approaches, we can also understand what are the strengths and limitations of the respective frameworks. For example, we might say that conversation analysis strength lies in its empirical rigor and replicability. It can also be at the same time criticized for neglecting a broader social context. So sometimes we're only looking at what is taking place inside an interaction, but we are not considering where this interaction is taking place, what is the social context of the interlocutors, and so on. On the contrary, discourse analysis offers flexibility and the capacity to address questions of power, ideology, and social change, but sometimes it might lack the fine-grained attention to the interactional detail that conversation analysis provides. So basically, choosing between these two often depends on whether your research requires a micro level or rather a macro level analysis, or maybe a combination of both. In summary, we can say that conversation analysis excels at examining the mechanism of real-time interaction, making it ideal for studies in conversation structure, interactional norms, and turn-taking. Discourse analysis is well situated for exploring meaning, identity, and power dynamics in a wide range of textual and spoken contexts. In practice, some researchers combine the strengths of both methods to provide a richer account for language use. And ultimately, we can also say that the choice should be guided by your specific research question, by the data you are looking at, and by the theoretical commitment of your study. Thank you very much for having watched this video. Stay tuned for more.